What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Hope the last few hours have been kind. And here now I have my more formalized review of the 1991 action horror comedy Highway to Hell, directed by Ate DeJong and written by the one and only Brian Helgeland. Which, again, I'll confess I didn't know that going into this movie, but, I won't patronize you listing off all the titles. Brian Helgeland is Brian Helgeland. When I initially looked at the thumbnail on TUBI for this movie, when I saw the poster and I read the premise, I thought I knew exactly what I was getting into, and I was once again, for like the third or fourth movie in a row, very pleasantly surprised. It's about a couple getting ready to elope when the bride-to-be is suddenly kidnapped, seemingly out of the blue, and taken to hell by the hell cop. Her fiancé chases after them into hell to try and bring her back, and from there it's kind of What Dreams May Come meets Mad Max meets Back to the Future, I guess. This movie is so cheerfully, enchantingly goofy and unabashed that it is impossible to resist. As the lead, Chad Lowe, who is the younger brother to Rob Lowe, does feel like a bit of a numbnuts, and let's be honest, his character is a bit of a numbnuts. But as the movie progressed, I began to appreciate the spins he was putting on his male protagonist character. Rather than your more typical alpha male strutting, this kid is a confused, frightened goof who never knows quite what he's doing. He's brave, but he's also clumsy and stupid and naive at points. Although I give him credit for not being a total cliche and letting his dumb stick do the thinking for him at a crucial moment. And that streak of vulnerability that he consistently displays does make him more relatable and nuanced than your average protagonist in a movie like this, circa 1991. The whole movie is very self-aware and witty, thanks in no small part to Brian Helgeland's script. And when I say witty, I don't mean cute joke witty. I'm talking about savage, biting, below-the-belt satirical jokes. Brian Helgeland has always been very willing to go dark and gritty and raw with his scripts, but movies like this really do give you some insight into just how little he gave a good goddamn back in the day. When was the last time you saw a movie where hell included a casino named after Jimmy Hoffa, with a statue of Hoffa sitting in front of the casino holding up a sign that says, "I love hell"? Merciless sight gags like that are prevalent throughout the movie. It's like Brian Helgeland wrote down every little thing about contemporary culture that pissed him off and just lined them all up as clay pigeons for this movie. But speaking of loving hell, I happen to love this movie's version of hell. It's very effectively staged and shot in the desert, and it's set up as sort of being an alternate dimension version of Earth. Like a really warped, morally bankrupt version of Earth, rather than the fiery depths below. And the very minimal exteriors juxtaposed with some of those really wild off-the-wall interior set designs, it really adds to the surrealism, and there are, again, some very, very inspired sight gags, not just the sort of stuff I just mentioned, but as an example, there is a chase scene set on one of the titular highways in Hell, and there's a moment when the characters pass over a series of signs designating the different lanes. We've all seen those on the highways, those big green signs that tell you which lane to take depending on where you want to go. But here, they're all set up as labeling directions to, if I remember right, the different circles of hell, or different forms of despair that you can access this way, I guess. And it's one of those things where it's about a 5-second gag, if it's even that long. Like, you see these signs very fleetingly, but for the few moments that you see them, they were very clearly actually built. All 7 or 8 of them, or however many there actually are, going across the highway. And you really have to respect that they went through that much effort for what is just essentially a passing gag. It's that kind of commitment to details and the illusion and the aesthetic that kind of elevate this above a lot of other movies in this kind of B-movie category. Some of the special effects that they use to fill out the backgrounds and wider shots do feel a little bit dated by today's standards, but they're dated the same way that the special effects in the first couple of Star Wars movies are dated. You know that you're looking at special effects, but so much care has been put into them, and you can see that they really did truly do the best with what they had. I know that sounds like a backhanded compliment, but I'm saying that like you can really see that they used every resource and made every effort to make this look as good as possible with the technology at the time. Combined with the fact that the art design is such good artwork on its own terms, you end up with something that you know is a special effect, but still looks so good in its own way that you don't care. The supporting cast in this is really solid too. You've got Richard Farnsworth, Ben and Jerry Stiller, Lita Ford, Patrick Bergin. In this particular instance, I choose not to reveal who, but I will just say it is painfully obvious which of these characters is actually the devil. His name certainly isn't subtle. Just look this movie up on IMDB or Wikipedia and you'll see what I mean. The saving grace in this instance is that while it is very obvious to us who this character really is, it's not obvious to our hero, which creates a lot of good tension during his interactions with this person because we have the knowledge, although he doesn't, that he is directly dealing with the devil. As for the hell cop who kidnaps the bride and sets things in motion, he has a great design, awesome makeup, really awesome costume, badass car, but I will admit he does feel a little underutilized. He's sort of set up early on as being kind of the main antagonist that our hero has to face, but there are long stretches where you don't see too much of him and whole plot elements that don't involve him at all. It's also slightly disappointing that for literally being a demonic cop, his range of abilities and weapons feels very limited. And just the way the character's played, he comes off kind of stiff. Still effective enough to hold up his end, but I feel like the character would have been a lot more fun if he was less of a tree trunk. I even think if he had more personality, there's a chance that he could have become an iconic character. But he ends up just kind of being a serviceable movie thug with a good look. The screenplay also does have a couple small loose ends. First of all, even though this everything but the kitchen sink approach to the screenplay is a big part of what gives it charm, the parameters and the rules, for lack of a better word, in this version of Hell are so vaguely defined that it was kind of hard for me to get a grasp on things. I was never really totally clear. I mean, yes, I get that this particular bride was kidnapped and brought into hell, and then, you know, her fiance chases after her. But then you get there, and there's people who have died and gone there. There's other people who got tricked into being there. There's other people who have been kidnapped by the hell cops similarly. And then the movie is equally fuzzy on the how, if, when, where, behind how you escape hell. Richard Farnsworth also sets up a character who feels like he's going to be important and revisited before the end of the movie, but that never happens. To be fair, by 91, Richard Farnsworth had really evolved into one of those old pros like Bruce Dern, who just brought a lot of personality and presence to whatever he did just by being cast in that role. So maybe I just made a lot of assumptions based on his iconic presence, although that's just it, you know, for the most part. You don't bring in a noteworthy A-lister like that to give him an innocuous role, unless you're planning to just do a double bait and then have him turn out to be the villain or the real bad guy or something. There's also another character who has a name, I'll just say that much, and that name does suggest that they are going to have some greater significance in the story, but again, that's never really paid off or confirmed in any definitive way. There are times where I thought the movie was starting to hint more strongly at who this character could actually be. But then the way the movie ends, that doesn't really sort of matter one way or the other. But those are all nitpicks, and against that, you've got a lean, fun, goofy movie that has a much more intelligent sense of humor about itself than I could ever have anticipated. If you like movies made in the same spirit as something like, say, Repo Man, you'll have a blast with this movie. Anyways, thanks so much for watching, guys. I will include a link below in the comments section to watch the initial reaction if you missed that. Keep watching the channel for more content coming your way, and have an awesome evening.